Hello and welcome to episode 58 of Let's Hear It. Today's guest is Cameron DeWhitt. He has a podcast called Get Up in the Cool, which is one of my favorite music podcasts. He's approaching 250 episodes of this. It's been going for about 5 years. The podcast is centered around old-time music, and he features some of the great musicians in the old-time world, and he jams with them, has great conversations, and it's a very, very enjoyable podcast, so I encourage you to check that out. He's going to show us his Prust Tackhead Banjo, which is a fretless banjo, great sounding banjo. And Cameron also has a style of banjo that he's forwarding a little bit called Pitchfork Banjo, where he uses his right hand in a little bit of a different way than traditional clawhammer players. So let's say hello to Cameron DeWhitt.
Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. I know I mentioned in my intro that your podcast is one of my favorite music podcasts, and I've been listening to it. I think almost at the beginning. You're almost at 240 episodes, which is quite an
coming up on it. Yeah,
it's really amazing, and I've been amazed because your early episodes were taped with musicians in person for the most part, and you would go to festivals and you would jam with people, videotape it, record it. And then you obviously last year had to pivot into the pretty much the same thing we're doing now, but you've managed to keep it going, and it's very impressive. So congrats on that.
I accept the compliment. I've been working my ass off. It's so much work, but it's been really fun, and it's been fun to learn some new skills. I've always been willing to do tech stuff, obviously, in order to make the podcast, but I've had to upgrade a lot of my gear and learn a bunch of audio and video editing stuff, and learn how to overdub old time music because we've been doing mostly asynchronous jams, and
yes.
Boy, is it hard to overdub old time music. It's really challenging.
Oh, it was never meant to be overdubbed, was it?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, so you've done a good job. So essentially when you're doing this now, so you tape somebody, they send you their video, and then you add yourself over the top, right?
Yeah, they send me their audio, and I just use our the downloaded Skype video, and then I'll record myself afterwards. Yeah.
That's very impressive.
Thanks.
And tell me about the title, Get Up in the Cool, because I know what it means, but I think a lot of people are just curious. What is that? What does the name of the podcast mean?
Yeah, so, I have a conflicted relationship with the title because there are some people in the old-time community who maybe see me as a bit of a potential gatekeeper, because I'm picking people that I want to come represent old time community, and then with the name Get Up in the Cool, it sounds like maybe I'm deciding who's cool or not. That's not the idea at all. Get Up in the Cool is, I guess it's a phrase, not an idiom. It's an idiom, not one that I grew up with or that most people are familiar with, but I believe it means to wake up and get outside and start work or start living when it's not hot yet. Sometime, in the morning when it's cool and dewy out, which I think is a real evocative phrase. And it's also a title of one of my favorite old-time music tunes, Get Up in the Cool from Eck Robertson. And the theme song to my podcast is samples from Eck Robertson's fiddling, with me as the backing band playing banjo and bass and guitar And I had to, it was probably one of the nerdiest things I've ever done. I had to learn every single pause. I had to tune all of the instruments, including the bass, down to his, like, between G and A tuning. Just get really, really familiar with that tune. And now I could probably do it again, just because I have to listen to it every week along with all my listeners, because it's in my intro and outro. That's what's playing. It was a delight. Eck Robertson was probably the first source fiddler that I really started listening to, digging into.
Was he a Kentucky fiddler?
Texas.
West Virginia. Texas. There you go.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny because, so much of the old time music canon, heavy air quotes there, is sort of represented, by, like the round peak style or the Kentucky style or West Virginia. That's what a lot of people think of. But Eck Robertson, he's such a great fiddler. And, and he's a Texas fiddler, but he's not, all those recordings of him, it's not Texas style competition fiddling. It's like kitchen music. He's putting his fiddle into weird tunings. He's playing profoundly crooked tunes. He's got a lot of that kind of obscurity and nerdiness that people love about tunes from the other regions.
Yeah.
But he's got the showiness that's also very Texas.
Yeah. And when did you start playing banjo, and when did you decide old time music was your home?
Well, I started playing banjo when it was having a bit of a pop renaissance, like 10 years ago now. Maybe a little bit before that, but I was listening to a lot of Sufjan Stevens, songwriters like him, or I was listening to Avett Brothers and Mumford & Sons a little bit at the time, and it was a popular instrument to play for a minute there. There were a lot of there's like a lot of authenticity coding and sort of fetishizing around the instrument. At the time, people were wearing overalls, with varying degrees of irony, and I don't know. There was also there was a DIY boom kind of happening at the time, and yeah, banjo had a moment in the sun. It was a sort of a zeitgeist moment in the culture, and I sort of hopped on board. And I was just using it for, my songwriting and just writing weird songs and doing weird stuff on the banjo. And I just had all these mentors who were just gently nudging me towards getting into traditional music. But I was, in my early 20s and my late teens, I guess. And I was very self-important and thought that what I was doing was very important. And I'm not saying it wasn't, but I put those things in perspective now. And so I was in this band in Philly with another songwriter, and there's a fiddler in the band named Stephen Landis, who is my friend at the time, and we were in the sort of same community together, and he's like, let's play some tunes after band practice. And I was like, I don't know any tunes. And he started teaching me old-time tunes. And I think at first I was like, oh, this is like kind of novel. This is a way to, maybe I could busk with this, and maybe I could learn a little bit more about how to play my instrument. And somewhere along the line, it became the main thing that I did. I like to say that I was appropriating the banjo for my own purposes, and then at a certain point, the banjo and the banjo tradition and the old time tradition started appropriating me. So, and happy for that exchange.
And when did you start the podcast? What year was it?
2016. I think it was late January. I went to this house party. God, talking about going to a house party right now is still just like, what do you mean going to a house party? This is pandemic times, to put us in context. And I did my first episode with Rylan Burhans. That's not the first one that I posted, but it's the first one that I recorded, January 2016. And then I started releasing it in, I think, July, right before Clifftop.
Which I'm trying to remember what episode.
Brad
I think
Clodner was episode 1.
Right. I think Adam Hurt was the first one that I heard, which I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was within maybe in the second year when I recorded him.
Yeah.
I think it was we recorded at Rockbridge the following fall. Definitely a highlight.
Well, let's talk about the instrument you're going to show us.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a few banjos, and you've also developed a bit of your own style, which you call Pitchfork Banjo, which you can give us a quick example or explanation of if you feel like it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess first we'll talk about this instrument that I've been obsessed with since, I think maybe April of last year. This is an Eric Prust Tackhead Banjo. I think people are starting to try to not use the old word to describe these instruments. Some people aren't trying, but that would be a minstrel banjo, because of the just problematic history of the instrument and that particular tradition. So I've just been calling it a tackhead banjo because it is tacked on, like so. And I'm not like a huge, banjo history nerd, more than the average person, of course. But so I can't necessarily say, is it like a Boucher style? Is that what this means? I don't know. Yeah. Do you know?
Well, that headstock is a Boucher style.
Right.
And that is the general shape of that banjo is Boucher style. So Boucher was a guy who made banjos during the Civil War, kind of recognized as the first, almost like a factory. He produced a lot of banjos, whereas before they'd been, somebody would hand make one over here, somebody would hand make one over there, but he set a particular style, and those became popular. And when people look back at photographs from the Civil War, when you see musicians, they're usually playing a Boucher banjo, which is that style that you're holding there. Maybe not exactly accurate, but the general vibe.
Yeah. So my understanding is that Eric Prust makes these, just pumps them out, and I think this one cost $200. I did not actually buy this. This was gifted to me by another supporter of the show. I say another because you, Gary, have been a supporter of Get Up in the Cool for quite a while now, and I'm so grateful for your patronage and support. Another Patreon supporter, Phil Shills from Decatur, Illinois, had this. I get the impression he has, a modest case of banjo acquisition syndrome, as some people like to call it. Oh, and if you listening or watching, rather, this is video, have banjo acquisition syndrome and you're a white person, I would recommend checking out the Banjo Reclamation Project. The Black Banjo Reclamation Project, I believe, is the full name, for black banjo players, distributing banjos back to, I guess, specifically black Americans, because that's where the banjo is from. It's from the enslaved black folks in the New World, and they invented this, what the ancestor of this instrument, but organologically it's the same and different from the West African versions, and through a long and sort of violent and embarrassing history, they have been shamed out of participating in this music, and there are some folks who are trying to make space and resources for black people to play the banjo again, and to uncode the instrument from its white hillbilly coding, because it's always been or from very early on in the banjo's history, it's been an instrument in all sorts of different settings, and it originally was black. Anyway, Phil Shills, he decided to give this banjo to me, and because he wasn't using it much, and I've gotten so much wonderful use out of it. And I think sometime in the next year or two, I'm going to record an old-time album. I've already started of old-time banjo, mostly solo music. And this will be a prominently featured instrument. Let's hear it, though. That's the title.
Yeah.
Not let's talk about it.
Right.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Give us some examples.
Yeah, so this is, I think it's tuned around F. So I have it tuned pretty high. Usually I have it tuned down to like a standard tuning, like, standard G on a banjo, but like down to D. But I really like it up here in F for tune playing. Maybe I'll play Fire on the Mountain. Old time Fire on the Mountain. Such a fun instrument. I love it.
Excellent. And of course, there's no frets on there, so you're finding your way around.
It's got all the notes.
It's got all the notes. They are there.
Yeah, infinite notes.
Yes, but I the challenge on fretless banjos that I find is, you were doing some chordal stuff there, just a little bit, just little touches, and you're sounding perfectly in tune.
Oh my goodness, excellent. Thank you. It's been a real journey because this, other than singing, and I guess I played a little bit of string bass in high school and college, but it's my first instrument where a part of the performance is tuning, and it's also my first justly intoned instrument. Because I'm so used to playing the piano or playing other fretted instruments, and having to, it doesn't work if I tune it to a tuner. What I've actually been doing is I have like a Shruti Box app.
so do I.
Yeah.
Oh, you have the Shruti Box app. Okay.
I don't have a real Shruti Box.
I do.
That's lovely. Maybe I'll get one someday. But no, I just have an app on my phone because then I can have it anywhere, and I'll set it to the note that I want to tune it to. So I set it to F, and then I tune it to that because nice. You can have it justly intoned because the fingers will do the work to find, to intone each note as necessary. Which it's been a process of slowly developing that, that intuition, because, the way that you would voice like a C chord, is maybe different than an E chord, even though it's both the first fret, So that's how I would voice, an E chord. And then my index finger, you maybe can't see it, but it's slightly farther south on the neck, because that's where the C note is. It's not in the same position, even though it's the same fret. Learning that stuff has been a real trip.
I have a few fretless banjos as well, and what I usually find is when I first pick it up, I'm like, oh, I'm terrible at this. So you have to get by that first hour or so, and then you start just instinctively going to the right spot, and there's always little grain marks or little things
little
that you
grain
can
marks.
look down at and you catch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, the tuning is always, you always have to figure that out. But it's really fun to play once you're in it. It's great.
Yeah, totally. I remember when I was first like dialing this instrument in, it was just going out of tune so quickly. And just like if I played it very hard at all, which I wanted to do, I wanted to wail on it, it would go out of tune. And I was talking to Jake Blunt about it. We were working a digital camp together, Earful of Fiddle. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what to do, like it's just I have to tune it after every single tune. And he's like, well, have you tried like putting your bridge a little closer to the tailpiece? If you have more tension on it, then it'll stay in place. The bridge won't wander as much if you put it closer to the tailpiece. And I was like, yeah, but if I do that, then that changes where all the notes are. And then, because like I had it set up, so I had the bridge, farther in the middle of the head, so that this divot here would be where the 12th fret would be, and this is where the 7th fret would be, and this is where the 5th fret would be. So, I wanted it to line up. And he was like, first of all, why are you playing up there? That's nonsense. Stop that. I still try. I still actually do it quite a bit. Maybe I'll play another tune where it was some like me trying to figure out the up the neck stuff on this. But I took his advice for the bridge placement. I put it down here, and now it really stays in tune. Once it settles in to a particular tuning, it stays there, and I can really wail on it. It doesn't travel too much, even though it's got the friction pegs and this potentially wandersome wanderlust bridge here. It stays in place, and I've had to relearn where the notes are because of that.
Yeah, you figure it out soon enough, and now you're in tune.
Now I'm in tune. Yeah.
Good. Tell me a little bit about this, the Pitchfork Banjo style.
Yeah, so this is just an extension of the clawhammer technique. It keeps the clawhammer motion and stroke intact, which was my priority. The reason I came up with this style, basically it's a middle finger up pick, but not a finger movement, as in, old-time three-finger or bluegrass style. You move the finger to get it in the way, so as you're recovering from a downstroke, you catch a string on the way up, just like thumbing on the 5th string or doing a drop thumb. So that's just interspersed. It allows you to play ascending lines with 8th notes. Like, if you're to do a descending line, you're using a combination of downstrokes, drop thumbing, and pull-offs, right? You can add slides in there too, if you want. But you don't have that same kind of technique for ascending, unless you use the pitchfork stroke. Some people like to do alternate string pull-offs and to use that for melodic playing. That's where you do a left-hand pluck. I think that's too hard. I love alternate string pull-offs for, round peak texture. It sounds so great. But, splitting all the, splitting your brain to okay, I'm going to ascend in pitch, so I need to do a pluck here. It's just too much. And then it's doubly or triply hard to play an offbeat note ascending that's fretted, so it doesn't allow you to play in vertical positions up here. So if I wanted to do a sheeps and goats go to pasture, is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called. I wouldn't be able to do that without Pitchfork. I would have to do a bunch of sort of nonsense in order to get anywhere close to that. That wouldn't be intuitive. I wouldn't be able to go the same way up and down. If I wanted to do an alternate string pull-up, I would have to use one left-hand finger to fret and the other one to play, which is tonally different. It's a lot of work. The middle finger, it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
You know, might as well grab a note. It's great for
And
syncopation,
also,
and yeah, I use it all the time.
Yeah. And you also showed us that you could play up there around the 10th fret on a fretless banjo and make it sound in tune.
Yeah, so this is my 7th fret position. So this is 7, 9, 7, 8. It starts getting a little hinky up here. Yeah, so now, you know, if I want to get that 12th fret note, the octave, it's like a little bit farther south from that divot.
Yeah.
And I just have to aim for that general direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, Cameron. I really appreciate it. You're doing great work spreading the love of old-time music, and I love listening to your podcast. You have another podcast as well, which I have not checked out.
Oh, yeah. It's called Think Outside the Box Set, and it's I wouldn't call it a comedy podcast. It's like comedy adjacent, but it's very irreverent. And it's my co-host Nathan Hunt and we listen to a recording artist, usually like a pop musician, like their full discography every week, an album chronologically. And usually we're trying to, like, you know, kind of develop a hot take. Usually they're artists that are sort of misrepresented or misunderstood in some way, or obscure. Like we started with Garth Brooks, who is not obscure. He's the highest selling recording artist solo artist of all time, at least in the States, which is bonkers because neither of us had listened to any of his music. We knew Friends in Low Places and that was it. And we're like, how can that be? Like, is it just purely that demographic? Anyway, so it's about understanding the bits of culture that we don't have access to. It's always artists that are important that we haven't listened to. So, it's a really fun show. I also got pitchforkbanjo.com has been a thing for about a year, which is my banjo instructional site. And I do teach how to do the pitchfork stroke in there, but there's a lot of non-pitchfork stuff that I also do on there. And I'm really... I've worked really hard to make a site that answers all the questions and isn't obtuse about the claw hammer technique and how to do it. And I just try not to take anything for granted. It's the videos, the instructional videos are all upside down, which sounds terrible, but think about it. When you look at your banjo, when you're playing it, you're looking at it upside down. Fewer layers of abstraction. The banjo in the video looks the same as when you look down at your banjo. Just like little things like that. I want to like be as hospitable as possible because I want more people to play the banjo because it's so fun.
Oh, it's a noble mission.
Thanks.
I'm 100% with you. So thanks for coming on today, man.
Thanks, Gary.
And I've enjoyed listening to the podcast every week. Always look forward to it when it pops up early Wednesday morning. So keep it going.
Thank you. Can't wait to get some tunes with you in person when it's safe to do so.
I know. Same here. I hope I'm always jealous when I see you posting about the Hawaii Old Time Music Festival.
Oh,
I need
it's
to
so
get to
fun.
that.
I was so bummed to... I was going to go as a not hired person this last year, and then I didn't get to, and it's a bummer. Maybe next year. Maybe this year. Maybe.
I'm hoping there's a chance at Galax Old Time Fiddlers Convention in August this year, and maybe some of the late summer ones. Maybe there's a shot.
Maybe.
We'll see. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Yeah, you too.
Well, thanks to Cameron for joining us today. That was great to hear that banjo and learn a little bit about his podcast and his old-time music mission, which I love. Check back in the next couple days for the next episode of Let's Hear It.